Welcome to another edition of Resilient Living Podcast, a show dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life on your own terms. My name is Adrian Babashoff, and this is episode 33, and this is Inside Tiny Living. The background noise is my vehicle. We do this on my commutes, and please forgive the background noise. But who am I? What am I talking about today? And it's tiny living, and I've been tiny living since 2000. And I think it's like 2014. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I just had some insights and things that I wanted to kind of share with you guys here today. And we got 15 minutes allotment here on our time, so let's get into it. The very first thing that I want to talk about is the power of comfort and mobility. I've been realizing a lot of troubling times and things happening right now, and I get stressed out and boggled, such as yesterday's podcast and a couple before, we're talking about a lot of hard times that may be possibly coming. There's all kinds of things shifting and things like that in the world right now. And being a single father, sitting with my two children, wondering where the heck do we go? What do we do? What is the smartest thing, the move for us right now? Because there's so much uncertainty right now. And every time these things start to happen to me, I sit down and I assess my situation. And I've been looking lately going, you know what? We can easily just pick up and we can move. And this is one of the most liberating feelings I think that I can have. I have a super low overhead, and it's been this way for many, many years. And noticing that I'm not cemented into anything like most people, no matter what happens with the economy, I think in life, for me, when things start to go south, things start to turn a little bit, it's always nice to be able to adapt and to be able to move and conform, or maybe not necessarily conform, but adapt more, I'd say, to the environments and the things that are happening. And what better way to adapt than to be able to pick up your home, put them on the back of your truck, as the one you're hearing in the background noise here, and haul away to a different town, a different state, right? Someplace where maybe things are a little better. So the power and comfort of mobility, I think, for me, has been a stress reliever. In many ways, it's a stress causer. It's not just all perfect, but it's definitely, when I think about just survival, about what do we need, what's the best thing for us as far as surviving through these strange times, and it's definitely mobility. So I spoke about the low cost. I pay about a third of what most people pay, and this is going to go on no matter where you're at. I don't care if you're in Texas, if you're in Oregon. I lived in Oregon, and I lived in my trailer for a while. While we were looking for properties up there. I lived there about maybe 14 years ago. And we were paying at that time about $380 a month. And that's water, not electric, but water and trash, everything all included. Very simple. You pull up, and I mean within, a few hours, your home is already set up. So, the power of mobility, I think, is probably one of the biggest, the things that I look at, the biggest pluses. Now, patience, oh patience, is my next note here. And it is like living in a hallway. It takes a lot of patience. Although I noticed when I did have a house that I was renting, and I had the ex-wife, she'd be cooking in the kitchen, and people, we'd all be walking around smelling what's in the pot and everything, and she was like, everybody get out, Well, when you're living in a tiny house or a travel trailer, every space is like that. Just to get to the restroom, I mean, when it's cold and it's rainy and you've got like more than two people in there, it becomes very stuffed and stuffy, and you definitely have to learn some patience. And I think that's where I think it's benefited me, because it's forced me to to have that patience, especially with children. You're carrying a big old plate of food or dishes or something like that, and you're trying to get over to the sink, and your kids just don't know any better, and they're just standing in the middle like deer with headlights, like, what's going on? You're like, move please, move before somebody gets field goal punted. Just kidding. I love my children. I got to throw jokes in there. But yeah, the patience, I think, what's nice though is that spills over to most of life. And I think when you're always in tight confinements with each other, you learn to suppress your anger and your frustrations and things, and deal with stuff, and just have a lot more patience. And I think patience is probably one of the biggest lessons, gifts I think that we can give ourselves and other people in the world. So in a way, it's a negative. It's really a pain in the butt to deal with people in such confined spaces. But having that lesson embedded in me, and hopefully embedded in my children, I think is a really great thing. Moving on is the simplicity of things, and this is kind of, you're forced to minimize a lot of the things that you own because there's not a lot of space to be had. So what I like about this is I don't really have a lot of things that I own like I did when I had a house. But what I love about the simplicity is that I can literally clean my entire tiny house within probably, this is AKA, let me just clear things up too. This is a travel trailer. It's the exact same thing as a tiny house, but different, if that makes any sense. No, it's the same kind of living quarters. I chose to purchase a travel trailer that had everything already all set up, shower, stove, refrigerator, and all that for a fraction of the price. I think I picked mine up for about $12,000, and it's a 29-footer. Whereas I thought about building my own, and that probably would have ran me at that time probably about $100,000. So now, I don't want to go into too much detail of the difference here, but yeah, the simplicity of it is everything's repairable, very easy to clean, and it just makes life in general simple. My next note here is the human kennel factor. And what I look at, I live in Sunnyside, California, and North County, San Diego, and we have a relatively smooth climate here. And we spend most of our time outdoors. And I don't think that's for everybody, but one of the things I look at is the main time, like me and my kids, me and my daughter, when we go to sleep is, when we utilize that trailer the most is when we go to bed. So it's virtually like a human kennel. And I look, if you're an outdoors person and you like being out in nature and everything, there's really no need to go inside the trailer all the time, like to be sitting on the couch and things like that. In fact, what I've done is I've constructed myself a pop-up tent with a pop-up canopy with a bug screening around the whole thing. It's about a 10 by 10 footer. I went and bought myself a futon, and I've got that in there. I love the futon because it turns into a bed, so if you want to take a nap and really sprawl out and snuggle, with your loved ones, it makes it very convenient. You got the screen there to keep the meat bees and flies and mosquitoes off of you. And I got a fan that sits up inside of it, an oscillating fan. So yeah, we sit there. On hot, warm days and things like that, we spend a lot of our time there. I cook outside a lot. I have a barbecuer. I might have spoken about this before on a previous show, but yeah, I use my barbecuer as an oven. I made cookies, pizzas, bread. We barbecue things, obviously, dehydrate things, make toast on it, and I've got a big giant griddle that goes over the top. So we'll make what do you call that? We'll do wok cooking, basically. So yeah, very versatile. I've got freezers and 2 chest freezers and a refrigerator outside. I also built myself a 10 by 10 foot, about an 8 by 10 foot shed, and that's where my oldest daughter, where she needs some space. So that's one thing that is nice about what I've done. Having the shed, that's where my oldest daughter, for privacy, she spends most of her time. It's all insulated with recycled jeans, so it's all natural, eco-friendly. We've got soundboard and carpet all over the walls and ceilings so that it's very well insulated from the heat and the cold, but also soundproof. And it gives a little space, I think, for people to just kind of have their own little privacy. And it's the same thing with having the trailer completely open. Then the outdoor living situation is that, my little one, if she wants to go in there and take a nap or something, or wants to be by herself, she's got the space to do so. So yeah, make do with what we got. I want to talk about the unconducive aspects of living this way, and this is the reason that I am actually thinking of upscaling maybe to a mobile home or something of that nature, and it's because of storage, and storage just in general. But what it really boils down for me is that I'm a a light prepper, I guess, as you would say. Everybody's a prepper, I guess. I didn't know that I was until I started kind of really looking at myself going, wow. So when I say prepper, I like to store a lot of food in case we have a natural disaster or something like that. I've got up to about a month and a half to 2 months worth of food, and I had to build myself some little pantries and things like that, and get those little, those tough boxes they have, the black ones with the yellow lids. They're really strong, and you can stack them up on each other. I've got a few of those with things that I'm already using, as far as like spaghetti sauce, spaghetti noodles, and cans of tuna, canned soups and broths and stuff like that. So, and it's not very conducive because I've got these stored underneath my trailer. So I've got to pull out, this big old box, and there's stuff kind of at the bottom and stuff, mixed around. You kind of got to go through things. Whereas if I had a house and I had an actual pantry or a cellar, I think that would be a lot more convenient, I think. But also, I don't think necessarily the convenience of things. I look as far as production. I talk a lot. My newest philosophy that I've been sharing on the show, teaching on the show, is to become a producer instead of a consumer, as much as you can, as much as possible. And one of the things I like to do is ferment foods like kimchi, sauerkraut. I want to make my own kefirs and yogurts and things like that. I like sprouting seeds like alfalfa and mung beans and things like that. But there's not a lot of counter space inside of an RV or a tiny house, tiny living basically. And those are the kind of things I look at with a lifestyle design such as I have, where I want to actually produce a lot more things. And that's when I look at, well, maybe a house would be better. And maybe some of you are saying, well, you do the best that you can, with what you got. But there's a lot of things to it. When you're wanting to do fermented foods and things like that, seed sprouting, you want to have a little bit of a controlled environment. You don't want things super, super cold. You don't want things super, super hot, especially when you're fermenting. Definitely messes around with the fermenting process. So having a large counter space, I think would be a lot more conducive. The thing that I look at, it's usually always ROI, return on investment, and it's the mathematics. What I look at is how much sprouts are you actually eating, right? And how much fermented foods are you actually eating? Does that justify paying another, probably $1,500 to $2,000 a month just so you can sprout things? So we have to look at it on a large scale and say, well, what exactly would buying a house or upscaling justify? And it's a very difficult one. I can give you guys some stuff off the top of my head. Is I like to hang my clothes instead of putting them in the dryer. It saves energy. It's good for the environment. It makes my clothes last a lot longer. But you can't do that in an RV park, right? And I should probably clarify, we are in a tiny house. We don't own land, but we live stationary in an RV park full time. And so, if you're a producer, I think I'm really having a hard time with this one. I don't think it's very conducive to our type of living. My commute right now is actually heading over to my spin farm location. That's where I grow food on somebody else's property in exchange for paying the water and maintaining a certain portion of the land. And so I've got spaces to grow my own food and things like that, but I don't really have a place to process my seeds, to store my seeds. Again, being a resourceful person and resilient person, I want to get a big giant bank of seeds. And again, these are the same thing. You don't want to store these things where it's super hot. I think they would be okay in the cold, most seeds. But yeah, you see where it goes, where it just kind of gets a little too cramped. So I think it's things to take in consideration if you are looking into living in a tiny house. You may want to think about how you're going to live and what you're going to do. Again, I've had many, many years of experience doing this. It's a toss-up whether we just suck it up and make do with the best we can, or do we go get a higher overhead, meaning we have to spend more money and work harder. I'd love to say too is that we are getting close to the time when I'm going to take off on my mini retirements, is what I call them. A plus that I have living in my tiny house with a fraction of the cost is that it affords me to go to the beach almost every single day, whatever I want. I live in an area where I'm right smack dead in the middle of the desert, the mountains, and the ocean, and I consider it's like Peter Pan's island. I've got lots of different things that accessible to me. So if I did move into a house, that may not be able to give me the flexibility to be able to do those things. And definitely, if hard times come, which I really believe they are, it doesn't give me the power of mobility. So it's a huge toss-up. I thought that I would share just in case anybody was wondering, from somebody who has some long time experience. And that's the show, guys, and I hope that helped you out on Tiny Living. If you guys like this show, please like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. The best thing you can do if you want to support the show and you want it to stick around is give me a review. And that way we can get more people listening to it, and maybe we can do some longer shows if we get a sponsor, so I can afford to do maybe like hour and a half show. So guys, that's the show. Thanks for being here. As I always say, go out there and have yourself a near-life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. And human up, my friends.